After the unexpected success of their hit audio drama, voice actors Miranda and Carlos Montero find themselves closer than ever, but their complicated feelings are far from simple. As production begins on the sequel, a talented newcomer named Charles Martin joins the cast, bringing charm, confidence, and a presence that immediately disrupts the fragile balance between the two leads. As jealousy, rivalry, and unspoken emotions begin to surface, Leon and Carlos must confront feelings they've long tried to ignore. In a world where every word is scripted but their hearts are not, the line between acting and reality begins to blur, leading them toward moments of tension, passion, and a love story neither of them planned.
Chapter 1: A New Project. The success of the audio drama was overwhelming. Leon had expected the series to do well. The script had been strong, the production high quality, and the chemistry between him and Carlos undeniable. But he hadn't expected fans to become obsessed. Online forums analyzed every whispered line between their characters. Edits of their scenes flooded social media. Fans replayed the confession episodes so often that the studio released a behind-the-scenes recording just to satisfy demand. Leon stared at his phone with mild disbelief. "People really like this stuff," he muttered. Carlos leaned against the kitchen counter of the studio break room, sipping coffee with a smug expression. "Stuff?" he said. "You mean us." Leon shot him a look. "Don't flatter yourself." Carlos grinned. "Oh, I'm not. The fans do that for me." Before Leon could reply, the studio director burst into the room holding a thick stack of papers. "Good news," she announced. Both men looked up. "The sequel is greenlit." Carlos straightened immediately. "Already?" "The producers want it fast," she said, "and they want the same cast." Leon nodded slowly. That part made sense. But the director flipped open the script and pointed to the character list. "This time, there's a third lead." Leon skimmed the page. His eyes stopped on a name he didn't recognize. Charles Martin. Carlos leaned over his shoulder. "New rival character?" The director smiled mysteriously. "Something like that." Leon shrugged. Another actor wouldn't change much. At least that's what he thought.
Chapter 2: Charles Martin. Charles Martin arrived precisely at 10 in the morning. The moment he stepped into the studio lobby, several staff members looked up in surprise. He was tall, nearly Leon's height, with broad shoulders and a relaxed confidence. His light brown hair was styled neatly, and his green eyes held a natural warmth that made him instantly approachable. But it wasn't just his appearance, it was the calm energy he carried. He greeted the staff politely before walking toward Leon and Carlos. "Leon Miranda?" Charles asked. Leon nodded. Charles offered his hand. "It's an honor to work with you." Leon shook it. His grip was firm but friendly. Then Charles turned to Carlos. "And you must be Carlos Montero." Carlos smiled casually. "That's me." Charles' expression brightened slightly. "I've listened to most of your performances. Your voice acting is incredible." Leon noticed the way Charles looked at Carlos. Not admiration, not quite. Something closer to fascination. The recording session began soon after. When Charles stepped into the booth for the first time and read his lines, the entire room went quiet. His voice was smooth and expressive, carrying emotional depth far beyond what anyone expected from a newcomer. Leon glanced at Carlos. Carlos gave a quiet whistle. "Okay," he murmured. "He's good." Leon had to admit it. Charles Martin was very good.
Chapter 3: Too Close. The first scene involving Charles and Carlos took place halfway through the script. Their characters were supposed to meet for the first time. A quiet confrontation filled with hidden emotion. Charles stepped up to the microphone beside Carlos. They stood closer than Leon expected. The director signaled for recording. Charles began his line gently. "You don't have to pretend around me." Carlos responded with controlled tension. "But you don't know me." Charles leaned slightly toward the microphone. "Maybe I want to." Leon watched from behind the booth glass. Something about the moment felt strange. The tone of Charles's voice was soft, almost intimate, and Carlos matched that energy perfectly. The scene ended with the director calling cut. Everyone applauded the strong performance, but Leon looked away. Later, Carlos caught up with him in the hallway. "You look annoyed," Carlos said. "I'm not." Carlos smirked knowingly. "Really?" Leon crossed his arms. "You two seemed very comfortable." Carlos chuckled. "Jealous?" Leon scoffed. "Of him?" Carlos leaned closer with a teasing grin. "You looked like you wanted to break the microphone." Leon didn't answer. And that silence told Carlos everything.
Chapter 4. A dangerous scene. The next major scene involved physical interaction. The director explained the blocking carefully. "Charles's character stops Carlos's character from leaving," she said. "Grab his arm, but keep it natural." Leon watched from the control room. Charles stepped forward during the scene. His hand gently wrapped around Carlos's wrist. "Stop running away from everyone," Charles said softly. Carlos's voice dropped. "You're assuming I'm running." Charles leaned closer. "Then prove me wrong." Leon's jaw tightened. Why did this bother him so much? Carlos had performed far more intimate scenes with him before, yet watching Charles stand that close stirred something unpleasant in his chest. Possessiveness. And Leon didn't like that feeling. Not one bit. Chapter 5. The First Kiss. That evening, Leon found Carlos alone in the recording booth. The dim studio lights created soft shadows across the room. Carlos looked up when Leon entered. "You look like you want to say something," Carlos said. Leon shut the door behind him. "You're enjoying this." Carlos raised an eyebrow. "Enjoying what?" "Flirting with Charles." Carlos laughed quietly. "You really are jealous." "I'm not." Carlos stepped closer. "Then why are you glaring at me like that?" Leon's patience snapped. He grabbed Carlos's collar and pulled him forward. Their lips met in a sudden, heated kiss. Carlos froze for half a second. Then he kissed back. The tension between them finally broke, months of rivalry and unspoken feelings spilling into that moment. When they pulled apart, both were breathing harder. Carlos's voice dropped to a whisper. "So, not jealous?" Leon muttered, "Shut up." Chapter 6. Charles Notices.
Charles was observant. Over the next few days, he began noticing small things. The way Leon always sat beside Carlos during breaks, the subtle glances between them, the quiet smiles they thought no one saw. One afternoon during rehearsal, Charles leaned against the table thoughtfully. "You two seem very close," he said. Carlos shrugged casually. "We've worked together for a long time." Charles nodded. "I can tell." Later that evening, Charles stood near the studio entrance and watched Leon and Carlos leave together. They were laughing about something. Charles's expression softened. I see," he murmured. Chapter 7. Crossing the Line. The next recording scene required Leon and Carlos's characters to argue intensely before reconciling. Their voices rose with emotion. "You drive me insane," Carlos said in character. Leon responded with raw intensity. "Then why are you still here?" Carlos turned toward him. "Because leaving you would hurt more." The line wasn't supposed to sound that real, but it did. When recording ended, Carlos grabbed Leon's wrist. "Stay tonight," he said quietly. Leon hesitated, then nodded.
Chapter 8. Studio Lights. The studio was empty once again. Carlos walked slowly toward Leon. "You've been impossible lately," Carlos said. Leon smirked. "You like impossible." Carlos's hand brushed Leon's jaw. Their kiss this time was slower, more certain. When Leon pulled him closer, Carlos's fingers curled into his shirt. They leaned against the recording desk, laughing softly as scripts slid onto the floor. Their quiet voices blended with the hum of studio lights. The moment stretched into warmth, closeness, and whispered words that stayed between them alone. Chapter 9. Confronting. The next morning, Charles approached Leon outside the building. "You like him," Charles said simply. Leon didn't deny it. Charles crossed his arms. "I figured." Leon studied him carefully. "You too?" Charles nodded. "Yes." Leon waited for hostility. Instead, Charles shrugged. "But he clearly likes you." Leon blinked. Charles smiled faintly. "I don't compete for people's hearts." Then he walked away.
Chapter 10. No more acting. The final recording session arrived. The last scene of the sequel involved a confession. Carlos spoke first. "You were never just my rival." Leon answered softly. "Then what was I?" Carlos smiled slightly. "My favorite mistake." The director clapped happily. Perfect. The recording ended with cheers from the staff. Later, outside the studio, Carlos nudged Leon's shoulder. "So, what now?" Leon looked at him. "No scripts." Carlos smirked. "Good." Then he leaned closer and whispered, "I prefer the unscripted version of us." Leon smiled, and this time he kissed him first.